morning, everyone. I'm Ari Rothman. I'm one of the assistant principals and the grade level administrator for the junior class. Welcome. Speaking of spreading joy, you have an opportunity today to hear about the programs that are done through school counseling in terms of helping your kids, our students, prepare for life after high school. I'd like to introduce, in no particular order, as they are all equally wonderful, Ann Vernon and Rose Marosh, school counselors, and Sue Carroll, the director of the College and Career Center. I'll leave it to the experts. Go ahead.
Wow, experts. He talked about spreading joy in college all in the same thing, so hopefully you will. Yes, you will land on the side of joy after this morning and not someplace else. So I'm happy to be with you. We all are happy to be with you this morning. I just left the college visits from Salve Regina, Carnegie Mellon, and University of Maryland. So the seniors are having a fest down in the College and Career Center, I'm happy to report. I wanted to extend the invitation to you all. This is hot off the presses, that on November 9th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium, we will have an evening with the deans. We will be welcoming the deans of admission for Fordham University, Rhodes College, University of Vermont, and Dartmouth College. You are invited. Your children, more importantly, are invited. You can pose whatever questions you have to them, not necessarily about individual colleges, but really about the admissions landscape that they are seeing. It's an interesting time to be a college administrator with the wonderment around testing, scores, diversity and inclusion, and political activism on campuses. So it's an interesting time to be an administrator. And we're very lucky to have these very experienced folks visiting us that night. So again, that's November 9th in the auditorium at 7 p.m. The purpose of today's meeting is really just to give you an overview of what lies ahead. We ended last year talking about what was going to be ahead in junior year. Now this is junior year for you. This is what will lie ahead. We will take your questions at the end, but you can certainly interrupt us if there's something perplexing that we are saying. We're going to start off with Rose talking about what your children experienced this week, and that was the PSAT.
Go up here. All right, so we'll also go over some other things. On the summer, students, if ready, began to go and see some colleges. We've had some copies of unofficial transcripts mailed home. And then in September, the students had to keep an eye out for details regarding the PSATs, which we just had this week on Tuesday. So students took the first iteration of the PSAT using Blue Book, which we used to have the small little, notebooks, I guess you could call the Blue Books, and the kids would fill them out and everything was done on paper. Well, now they're taking everything digitally. So they got to go ahead and, be our first round of students doing that, which is why we had them take them here. We wanted to make sure the students were comfortable in a setting that was familiar, they felt safe, and they were able to do that pretty well, I would say. So that was on the 10th, and then we also had a financial aid night that was on the 5th that was open via Zoom. But regarding PSATs going forward, just so you know, the students will be getting back their results in mid-November. So they'll be able to see how they did, what they did well on, what they didn't do well on, what they need to practice going forward. They will have it on their College Board account. No one's going to see these scores other than the counselors and the students. So it's not like they're automatically sent out to schools or anything like that. So they will also see like a diagnostic. Like I said, they can see what they did well on, what they didn't do well on. And they have an opportunity right in the College Board to sign up through Khan Academy, if they haven't done so already, to get tutoring on the areas that they feel like they need to kind of boost up. So we also encourage our students to talk with their counselors about like a testing plan. Once they become familiarized with their PSATs, do they want to try to take the pre-ACT? Is that something that they felt maybe they weren't too comfortable with the PSATs? They are kind of different, so they have the opportunity to do that as well. And then we also want them to know who colleges are that are test optional and who aren't test optional, because that might weigh heavily on which test that they take as well. So we go over College Board information with them, who takes the score choice, and then we talk about like the state test for graduation requirement in March. And I think that's, other than that, with PSATs, through January through March, we make sure that they're ready to take the SAT or the ACT in the spring, depending on which one they want. We have a junior parent night where we get to explore post-secondary options with our students, and with the parents. Oh, it's just the parents? Okay, sorry, just the parents. And then March through June, we get to research the schools, prepare for the SAT and the ACT. We promote students to continue to visit the college campuses. And then May through June, the students are encouraged to meet with us to discuss the process to date. So a lot of it is just like a lot of preparatory things. So by the time they get to their senior year, they feel confident in the process that they have to follow. So I'm going to pass it over to.
So the reason why the PSAT sort of kicks off the whole college shebang is that you finally have some scores. So you already have a copy of their transcript, so you know what their GPA is. You know if they've already started to dabble in honors level or advanced placement level classes. And now you have a set of scores that will go up from the PSAT, but you have a baseline, so to speak. As Rose mentioned, the digital test that they took on Tuesday is because beginning in March, the test going forward will be digital. The last iterations of the paper test will be that was October, November, and December. So if your student is hankering for a pencil eraser test, this is the last call for the College Board SAT. The ACT will go digital, I would assume, within the next year also. So, so that's why the PSAT sort of kicks all of this off. Hopefully, how many of you have started looking at colleges because you have older kids or because you've already started the look? Really? Those are wimpy hands. Who? That's a lot. All right, don't be embarrassed.
Sure. That's great.
You should be doing this. So if you haven't started, no harm, no foul. Some kids come out of the womb ready to go to college. Others, i.e. boys, you will have to drag them kicking and screaming. But this is so fun, such a fun experience, because you have an idea of if you went to college, what college was like for you, and now you get to see it 20 years later, and colleges are amazing, absolutely amazing. There's a reason why you're going to pay maybe $90,000 if it's a private school. Take a deep breath, $90,000 a year. So there's so many schools. We have an embarrassment of riches in Connecticut and New York to start your college search. I wouldn't start right now, and Anne's going to dig deeper into this, but I wouldn't start honing in yet on colleges that they're actually interested in because you've heard something about that college. You got Fairfield U, you have Sacred Heart, you have Yale, you have Columbia, you have Fordham, you have NYU, you have Manhattan, you have Trinity. All of these are very different colleges that are within an hour drive of New Canaan High School. You, as you become your child's organizer and secretary, can go online, can sign up for a tour and an information session at any of these campuses. Your kids, even if they're not Ivy bound, should look at an Ivy League college and they realize that those people look just like them. They should look at what if you're so inclined, maybe what a Jesuit institution looks like, what a small private liberal arts college looks like. Do they want to be in the heart of the city where there's taxi cabs, or do they want to be out at Bucknell where they're surrounded by cows? This is what you're trying to ascertain at this point early on in junior year. When you sign up for the college tour, remember, it's actually your child's name that you're going to be using. You will be accompanying them on the tour. And you're going to use proper legal given names, because at some point, if the college tracks demonstrated interest, and not all colleges do, then you want every single time that you touch that college, it to be in your child's name. So when they come to weighing in admissions a similar application, and this kid's been in contact 9 times, and this kid's never reached out to them, they're called ghost applications, because Common App is so easy, you can just hit apply, that they actually can say, oh, we're gonna go with a child that's reached out 9 times to us. Speaking of reaching out, the colleges reach right into your computer. So they track every time your child goes on their college webpage, and say your child is interested in engineering and they spend 15 minutes on the engineering page, the college is collecting that information, and they know that. They will send emails, and we've heard it from reps last year and this year, when students don't even open the emails to read them. And that's not to say that you should sign into your child's account and click open on every single email, because there's actually important information in that your children need to know. And again, since this is your children going to college, they need to start being able to master this. On the bridge to adulthood, this college application thing is just one of the things that they learn to master, because it requires organization, perseverance, and a clear brain, which is sometimes hard when you're 17. So this is their first iteration of being in the driver's seat for their future. So, Anne, you're going to talk a little bit about how to find some of these colleges to visit?
Yeah. So when you're finished with the sort of the local colleges, and you have more of an idea of what your child is looking for, large, small, medium, liberal arts, public university kind of thing, we're going to then direct your children through Naviance. And it's our web-based resource for college search and application. We send our documents through Naviance. So everything on Naviance is linked to the school counseling office. Whatever your child puts into Naviance, I get to see, or we get to see. If, there's sometimes families that are doing the list somewhere off on another spreadsheet or another application, we will not see what that is unless you show it to us. But the best way to show it to us is have your child go into Naviance and start with colleges I'm thinking about. And in order to get those names of colleges, I'm going to show you what's available in Naviance for college searches. This is a good search. There are other good searches. College Board is probably the most common. That's what we recommend. There are other okay searches out there. Sometimes you have to sign in, and other systems you just do the search. So, but College Board is a good alternative, and I would just recommend whatever tool you use to search, and I recommend using a couple, like Naviance and the College Board. But whatever you do in those searches, just make sure those colleges end up in Naviance. And colleges I'm thinking about allows your student and you sitting by your student to research those colleges through the data on Naviance that's tied to the New Canaan High School, the data that we have, and also the links to their websites. So this is a Naviance search, just to show you. They're on the left there, it's find your fit. There's several things you can do within there. You can, investigate each of these links. However, what we tell students to use is simply advanced college search. It's the second link from the bottom on find your fit. So this is what their page would look like when you go find your fit. I just typed in the type of college is a 4-year. I recommend keeping it as simple as possible. Don't put in too many criteria for Naviance to search. I recommend just location, number of students, and even major. Within that, you can then go into more detail within those colleges. Sometimes just location and number of students is enough, especially for students that have a common major like economics, which is probably a major that every college offers. So with my search, I typed in Massachusetts, just to be simple. Put in enrollment, that's the number of students, basically from small to medium, but not huge. And then I put in economics. 26 colleges came up matching those criteria. You can then scroll through, this is just a few of them. You can then scroll through and you might have heard of some of these. And you can pare down the list, and it'll also allow your child to check off a box and add that school to the colleges I'm thinking about. Also, where it says more, there's access to scattergrams and a few other things. Let me go back. So on the left side, it's colleges I'm thinking about. The middle link is only for seniors, colleges I'm applying to. And same with letters of recommendation. This is just a sample scattergram. All of the green check marks are acceptances. And there's a key down there at the bottom that you can use to figure out the acceptances. So this is a very popular school at New Canaan High School. They like us a lot. As you can see, most of the students were accepted. On the y-axis, it's the GPA, and that's the weighted GPA, which you will not have on the transcript that we sent home in the summer. You won't have that weighted GPA yet. Or will they?
I don't think so, not
No.
yet.
Not yet. Probably middle of junior year?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. You can look at it. I think when that went out, it wasn't yet posted. So this is weighted GPA as of the end of senior year. That's the last data point that we had for each of these students. So of course, your child's average will likely go up over those next semesters. And everyone knows that the GPA only changes at the semester. So that's something to note. Students will often look at their portal and say, oh, my GPA is going down. Well, the portal GPA is really meaningless because those grades change. Whenever the teachers go into the portal and enter a new grade, your GPA will change. And that GPA is not used for anything. It's just looking at the portal gives your child some idea about what they're doing so far, how they're doing. On the x-axis, that's the SAT, and there's also the ability to switch to the ACT. The thing about the data here on the SAT, right now, Naviance does not tell us who submitted their scores and who didn't. So you'll see a lot of, scores from about 1,000 to 1,500. We just don't know if they submitted those scores to the college. And that is because in COVID and starting in 2020, 2021, obviously everything went score optional. coming forward, Naviance will be keeping track of whether your students submitted or not. However, the data here is 3 years of data that has gone since 2020. And that's, the other thing I wanted to discuss when you are thinking of where to visit is not only whether your child is interested, but do they have a chance of getting in? So yes, you can go to Yale and visit Yale, and they may like it. It might be a fun day. There's a lot to see there.
Peace is really good in New Haven.
But you may not want to apply because it takes a lot of your time. We know what the statistics are on Yale, and there are other colleges like that as well. So it's important to look at the scattergrams before you visit, because sometimes kids really fall in love with the campus that they'll never have the ability to be accepted. And Naviance will tell you who gets accepted, or not who, but what level of student gets accepted. So just be aware of that. Sometimes when a family is flying out to, I love to use the example of St. Louis and Wash U. Now that's an expensive trip because it's plane tickets, it's hotels. Look at the scattergram first and you'll find maybe 2 students in the last 3 years got in. And their scores were very high, for example. Very wonderful university, very competitive academically. The other thing I think is important to note is the cost. The cost of attendance, as Sue said, I know last year it was common to see $89,500 for tuition and fees. So $90,000, that was last year. When your students are applying to a very competitive college, it's going to be usually much more difficult to get the cost of attendance down. There's a difference between the top schools, private schools I'm talking about, and sort of the next tier of great schools happen to be private, and maybe the middle tier. At one of our meetings, our conferences last year, there was a financial aid expert there, and he told us that the average discount for that group of schools is 57%. That's a big discount off of 90. So that's a way to pay attention to, maybe we need a financial safety, or a few. And so that mid-level college, maybe it's a Trinity, and maybe you have a really good student. I know Trinity discounts and other schools that are wonderful schools do that. And often, that tuition and room and board fees is more reasonable than a large university, except for maybe in-state, UConn. If you go out of state to the large universities, it can be amazingly expensive, and they don't discount because they're state universities. I personally feel that this is extremely important because, especially at New Canaan, I find kids here, they're so smart, and they really love learning. And I often tell kids, you're going to go on to grad school. I know you are. I went to grad school, and I was just an average student. I did 2 master's degrees, so I know they will, and you've got to keep that in mind when you are thinking about undergrad and the cost. So the other thing that's really important is when it comes to financial aid, there's net price calculator. Every college is required to have that on their website. The net price calculator will give you a sort of a general idea of what kinds of discounts they give, and also grants and scholarships. we, again, the point is, it's a good idea to talk to your child about financial considerations early, because they may fall in love with that school that's $90,000 and doesn't discount. And that can be, something you really need to set the parameters within your home about. In senior year, you'll find out more about scholarships. There are a couple of scholarship sites out there, FastWeb, Merit Aid, but really the ones that we really try to get students to focus on are the New Canaan Community Scholarships. New Canaan High School Scholarship Foundation,
Sapienza, the New
Sapienza,
Educated Community Foundation.
Not that time of year for me.
Yeah. Yeah, they all become available
Yeah,
to your
Kiwanis.
students January of their senior year.
And these are all for New Canaan students. So they're looking for students to apply. So those are really important.
A couple of things to piggyback on what Ann is saying. I wouldn't rush to the net price calculator on every college's website right at the moment, because there is a document, if you have older kids, you might be familiar with this, called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That is being updated in Congress, and it will not be updated until mid-December. So when that gets updated, so would every college's net price calculator. Because the questions that are going to be asked, for example, right now they consider whether you have more than one child in college. That's going bye-bye. So I would hold off on that and still do the research that Ann is telling you about as far as Naviance is concerned. But also, if you go up to Vermont, for example, and your child loves Middlebury, Middlebury, there's overlapping colleges. So if you like Middlebury, why would you not also look at Grinnell? I know it's in Iowa, but our kids would be geographically interesting to Grinnell and Iowa, and it's an equally fabulous school. If you like Bates in Maine, why wouldn't you look at Lewis and Clark in Portland, Oregon? If you like University of Wisconsin, which is the most popular school for our students in the last 2 years, believe it or not, they want to go to a school where people don't wear shirts underneath their overalls with a cheese hat to go to a football game. Yep. But it's a fabulous, fabulous school. Our kids are enormously interested in it, so much so that we had 49 applications to University of Wisconsin last year. So if you would make the trip to Wisconsin to look at Madison, why wouldn't you look at this very terrific university called Lawrence University, and it's in Appleton, right near Green Bay? There are so many overlaps that our students, your students, would be a little more interesting to that school, because you would represent one of those states where they don't get a lot of applications. Just because you haven't heard of a school, there are 3,000 plus colleges in the United States, 3,000 plus. Do not be New Canaan sheep that herd together and look at the same colleges. Cast a wide and expansive net. You would be surprised, pleasantly surprised, on what you will find. A parent has a child at TCU, very popular college, Texas Christian University in Texas, obviously. She was down for Parents' Weekend. She has a daughter who's just starting Bucknell. A mom from TCU said, "Oh, where's your daughter going to college?" The Texas homegrown mom said. Our New Canaan mom said, "Oh, she's going to Bucknell." The Texas mom said, "Where's that?" Yeah. So do not be a regional snob. And you might be very, very happily surprised. Ann mentioned financial aid or scholarships at private universities. If your kid is really, could go to an Ivy League school, but they apply also to Gettysburg, a very fine college, and they could be a presidential scholar at $80,000 a year free at Gettysburg. You can't tell me that Yale is a better education. You can't tell me that. There's great professors at Yale, and there's crummy professors at Yale. Is this being taped?
Yes.
There's great professors at Trinity and crummy professors at Trinity, because that's college. So really, I can't say this enough. I've been doing this for 21 years, and this is the time to sit at the dining room table with no other younger siblings at the table, have that conversation about what it's like to buy a Chevy Tahoe for your child every year, because that's a college tuition. And if you've been saving, and you can pay full freight without a hint of financial aid, explain to your teenager how you got there. Explain what you and your partner did to bank that money. If you will need financial aid, significant financial aid, then talk about that going in. This is, again, I talk about this all the time, that bridge to adulthood, and I don't mean to be pedantic, but this is an amazing opportunity for you to include your child in a very mature conversation. Open up the checkbook, show them how this works. They will hopefully buy a house someday, and you are setting the foundation for it right now. Okay? Also, one last thing about college visits. If you're in the car driving, or even if you're planing it to someplace, your child should have a notebook in the car. And when they get back to the car, because you will see, as fabulous as these colleges are, they all have rock walls, they all have Starbucks, they all have Ivy, they look alike after a while. So your child really needs a place to be discerning, where they can put their own notes in. It's very smart to take pictures at colleges, too, and start a file on your students start a file on their phone. Your student start a file on their phone. You need, when you get back in the car, you're going to be bursting with, did you see that? I would never let you even apply. You just zip it. You hold every maternal, paternal urge you have. They are 17, 18 years old, 16 years old. They need time to discern what they saw. All my daughter kept talking about was how many cute boys there were. Drove my husband crazy. Let them figure it out. This is early in junior year. All of this will become more narrow as the year progresses. Make sense? Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to, a little bit, one more thing about financial aid night. Strangely, if your guidance counselor is Sarah Drexel, and you saw all of these questions coming on career night to Sarah Drexel, that wasn't our school counselor, Sarah Drexel. She actually understands financial aid. So I just want to put that out there. So poor Sarah, whoever else was out there, but
Yeah, someone got on there. Someone else.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Okay, so we're going to move on to what happens in January. Rose.
Okay, so in January, what we'll do is we're going to start meeting with our juniors. But before that, just so you know, we have been utilizing the building block days so that we can go in and meet with our groups of students. Just because it's been early in the year, we're trying to get a lot done with our seniors, making sure they're comfortable with the college application process. So far, we've been meeting with our seniors, but we will be meeting with our juniors coming up. It is an opportunity for them to get to know us better, especially it's my first year here, so I really look forward to meeting my students and for them to get to know me as well as me to get to know them. It's been a great opportunity for me that I haven't been able to do in the past in other schools, so that's really nice. So what we do is we go in, we talk about the different aspects of applying to colleges. What the colleges are looking for, the different demographics of the schools that they're looking at, the different academics that the students are a part of now, and maybe they would like to be a part of certain groups on the college campuses. What activities are they doing now that are really going to build their resumes and make it easier for them to stand out when they go to apply? Essays are huge. College essays are massive. A lot of students have the ability to go down to the Writing Center. I love taking a look at my students' college essays, but they also pretty much begin being able to explore that at the end of junior year, some in their English classes, some regarding their junior research projects. Everybody figures out, what am I going to use? How am I going to utilize it based on making it kind of like work smarter, not harder? Why would you have to just redo a college essay if you've already created something that you're proud of and that is going to have your personality shine through? Because that's what colleges are looking for. They're looking for a student who can show what their character is, the things that they've done, what they're proud of, maybe a certain situation that they've grown from, but it always comes down of what is their personality. Can I see this type of student in their writing? Which I think is very important to also keep in mind when it comes time for revisions after the first drafts or second drafts. Students who try to write like they're extremely smart and use big words, sometimes that becomes convoluted and harder to read. So I highly recommend that when the students are writing their essays, they're bringing it to the most simple that they can and expressive, make it stand out. The people that are reading them want to be interested. They don't want to just, be sitting there and saying, okay, I know that you're a great person. That's nice and all, but, who are you? And that's what we're looking for. So they'll have an opportunity to be able to expand on that later. But we do emphasize the important things and what the schools are looking for with the juniors. So the school year will end up with the students having a Common App account. We'll get them signed up so they'll know what they're looking at. They'll become familiarized with it so that when they start to apply, they're not super overwhelmed. They don't know where to go. I like to put together like a little frequently asked question sheet, like how many students are in your graduating class? Is it a weighted GPA, non-weighted GPA?
That's all needed in the Common App.
Yeah, so there's parts that they might not necessarily know that I like to give to them as well. It's really good for them to start thinking about what they're interested in, the majors that they might be applying into. And also a reminder that just because they choose a major now, it doesn't mean they have to be stuck for the rest of their college years. So it's a lot that we talk to them about, but hopefully because we're doing it over time, it's it's much easier to digest for them. And they know that we're here for them every step of the way. So,
And that's why the list that Ann and I have been talking about is important to what Rose is talking about. Because when you will initially meet with just your school counselor in January, parents and counselor. But then you will have an appointment with your child and parent. And you will have your child will have put in some colleges I'm thinking about. And then your wonderful school counselor can go, oh, you're interested in Middlebury. Let me put Grinnell on that list. So that the list that you will bring to the meeting can be just small. Don't think that you have to have filled the balloon up with all the air. Right. Your counselor will then help you figure out what the other overlaps are. Yeah. So that's how this list gets built. And also that list will change perhaps over the summer, and your child will enter and drive you crazy, but will start senior year with 9 other schools that never were on the original list, that aren't geographically, that have no major, it will change because, thank God, as you all know, they change. Yeah. So don't worry so much about the length of the list, the depth of the list. That's what your school counselor is for. Right. Okay? We last year had the PFA's Good Graces. We had workshops with the college essay guy for kids to help write their college essays, and hopefully that relationship or something similar will be ongoing for your class, which is terrific. And the things that we're hearing the most about, or at least in my office now as we have these college visits, is something called direct entry. That's a very hot thing on college campuses now. It's where you are applying to a larger university with schools within a school, the Farmer School of Business, whatever it is. And so when you're looking at colleges, if your child is interested in business, is interested in engineering, or is interested in fine arts, for example, keep your eyes open and suggest to your child that they keep their eyes open for programs that are direct entry, where you are applying right to that program as opposed to the general university, because that has emerged as a theme this year. That and the dreaded test scores, which there's only 15 colleges that require test scores. They're exactly who you think they would be, MIT and Georgetown and West Point. And so don't worry, don't let that be the thing that you get stuck on also, or that your child gets stuck on, okay? Again, you'll have, the whole process will be set up with a very strong foundation by the end of junior year, and then senior year, your child will hit the ground running with a senior appointment, a confirmation of interest in schools, assistance with essays, and everything else. And did you mention Rex, Teacher Rex?
We didn't talk about those. That, at the end of junior year, say April, juniors should be asking 2 teachers to write recommendations for them. And actually, now is a good time to remind them of that, so that they can look at the courses they're in and which teachers they've developed a relationship with. If they feel they haven't spoken in class, they don't go for extra help, maybe they should start doing that. And that way, in the spring, those teachers might be the ones that your student will ask to write for them. So we ask in the spring, send a follow-up email, thank you in advance, even though most of the teachers don't actually write the recommendations until the beginning of senior year. It's good to have that buttoned up at the end of junior year. And then we'll take them through that process in the beginning of senior year.
And that pretty much is it. Your job now is to start looking at colleges and help your child with that, organizing that. Know that your child will most likely, they will take the SAT for free, meaning your tax dollars have paid for it, as a graduation requirement for the state of Connecticut. So that would be the SAT in March. There are many testing organizations that also will offer a free practice ACT if your child wants to compare the testing style. And if they've tested once or twice and they've done fabulously well, then great for them. And if they haven't, okay, so then you're not going to submit them. I haven't visited, a college has not visited yet where the amount of admitted students who submitted scores, it was like 40%, 50%. So most people, half the world's not submitting scores. So that's, of all the things to worry about, that would not be it. Yeah. Okay? And that really is it. This is a year of visits, of pondering, of growing up for your child, and of having frank discussions about what you can afford and how you got to be able to afford that, and also helping them figure out what they're interested in. The school counselors are marvelous at helping this also. But, your kids should not feel like they need to know what they want to do when they're 37. It's okay to be undecided. That still is the most popular major coming into a college, is undecided. Colleges are such an amazing place to explore. So if you feel like your child is adrift, they're not. They're just normal, okay? So we're happy to answer any questions you have about this overview for junior year. Yeah?
So you mentioned that 15 schools are still requiring test scores.
Correct.
And that not to worry about the whole testing process.
Mm-hmm.
So are you pretty confident, I know that this year, the test score requirement is for class of 2024. Are you pretty confident that the trends will continue?
Yes, for state universities, besides Georgetown, MIT, West Point, also, for example, University of Georgia, University of Florida, where the state legislature controls the requirements for their flagship schools' entrance. That's up in the air. That's a year-by-year decision. But it hasn't changed from last year, so I'm ever hopeful. And pretty much every school that we've interviewed so far, and we've seen a lot of colleges so far, they're pretty much good for 24 into 25. So again, it's a great question to ask when you are on campus, when you're at an info session. You know, what going forward, what does your test optional plan look like?
So I want to interrupt you.
Sure.
How many colleges are coming to visit this year?
Yeah, it'll probably be about 100, 110 by the time the dust settles.
And Sue's been doing this for 21 years, so she has
I have a little bit of a sense about this.
with
So I,
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of colleges.
yeah,
over
I,
the years.
and the reps look at the kids, the reps know that they've created a mess. The colleges completely know this, that this is really unfair to your kids. You know, it's almost like fish or cut bait. And they will tell you, if you scored within their mid 50% range, a question you can ask when you visit their campus, then you should send the score. The problem is that only good test takers are submitting scores. So that 50% is highly inflated. You know, so this is like a mess. Then you have a school, for example, like TCU, who says, just send us your darn scores. We have a do no harm policy. The algorithm will add your score to the admission rep's reading page if we think your score will help you. If your score doesn't, then the algorithm hides your score, so it never gets to the reader. Okay? You wish other people would do that also, but maybe just apply to TCU. But anyhow, so that's, again, I think kids get caught up on this thing, and I hear them in my office, they talk about scores, it's just...
It's the least important part of your
Yeah, it
application.
really, you know, if you have a 99 average or 104 average and you took 17 APs, and I'm exaggerating,
Yeah.
and then they look at your score and they go, oh, we got a 1570. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's the least important
Yeah,
part of the application. And the thing to remember with that is when you find your child spending hours and hours of time preparing for the SAT or the ACT, is that time well used? Probably not. It's the least important thing on the application.
Well, and also, if you read the paper yesterday, the ACT announced that the ACT scores are at a 30-year low. So do you think colleges want to take your kids' scores? It wrecks their, I'm being honest, it wrecks their mojo in the U.S. News and World Report. So, yes.
So, as you mentioned, a lot of colleges are coming to visit over the coming weeks and months.
Yes,
In
ma'am.
the emails that came in, it didn't sound like that was intended for seniors. If juniors have a free, are they allowed to go or are
They
they
are
not
not.
allowed to go?
And I'll tell you, it's a size problem. I can't fit them. And also, it changes the visit. The rep comes here for 40 minutes. If it's just seniors around the table, the conversation's very different than if there's juniors around the table too. If juniors are on the table, it becomes an info session like they do on their campus. If there's seniors around the table, the questions are more direct, as they should be, and pointed towards their major and things that are pertaining to them, such as actual financial aid, not the dream of financial aid. So we do not allow juniors to come to the visits.
And two other really quick questions.
Sure.
There used to be a guest password for Naviance. Are you going to reinstitute that or not? And also, approximately how many colleges are you currently recommending the students apply to over a spread?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You
want to repeat the question now?
okay, the question is there a guest password for Naviance? And the answer is no. You can go on Naviance with your child. Your child gets on Naviance because it's on ClassLink, which is part of his or her laptop. ClassLink the way students get into every application. So you have to basically sit down with your child, or your child may be walking away from his computer, and you can investigate if you want. But it's, yeah, no guest password, no guest access. We have made the decision to do that because it's so important for you to sit with your child and make sure your child is driving the car through this process. And it's not something that's going to hit you all at once. It's little by little. It takes over a year of work. And it's little by little. It should never like overwhelm you, even though it does. You can pace it out over that year, everything about it.
And I think the last part of your question was how many schools? You know, I'm old school. I still think 9. I think you look at 3 that are likelies, 3 where you could are slightly, or you meet their criteria, and 3 that are reaches. Do we have kids that apply to 25 schools? Yes, we do. If you get into 9 schools, how the heck are you going to decide where to go? So, but that's on you. That's on you, because that is $65 to $100 an application fee. So again, you go as wild as you will. I would spend the money on something else.
I've had students, I can think of 2 that applied to 20 schools and only got into 3. And can you imagine how depressing that is to read denial after denial? And the kids call it rejection. They're really not rejections, but it's very depressing for students. And then, you know, the other thing is students at all these reach schools, none of them have anything in common. Like, all of the Ivies are different. And all of the Ivy equivalents, they're all different universities, very different. So it doesn't really make sense to apply to all of them. And again, the more schools you apply to, when it gets to be that number, the less work you're really doing.
And how good are those applications?
No,
You've applied to 20 schools.
No.
How good are those supplemental essays, which are actually more important than the regular essay? So I don't know. The advice is being offered to you. You go ahead and do whatever you want with it. If you've hired an outside person, they'll give you a different set of advice, but they have to justify their whatever you're paying them. So I think that you should be measured in this and take it seriously. Again, how your child does this is how they'll do other things. So you set the tone. You know, you're still their parents. So yeah.
I have 2 questions. In terms of the weighted GPA versus the GPA, do they always enter in their weighted GPA? So for example, when they sign up for the SAT and there's a section where they have to put in their GPA, do they always enter in their weighted? And you said it's not in Power School.
Oh, weighted makes them look better, but when it gets to the college, you know, I'm the University of Michigan. I get your kid's application. I've known New Canaan High School. They're what a great school. You should also know how many reps come and say how great your kids are. You should know that, how great this high school is. But I'm the rep. I'm going to unweight that because I also am reading for schools where their grading scale is 1 to 5. So it depends on the college. It's another great question to ask when you are going to college visits. On what GPA do you base the decisions? Okay? Because like most things in college admissions, nothing is the same.
Okay, so they can always submit their weighted. It's just noted. I mean, and it looks like when you enter for the SATs and College Board, you don't note if it's weighted or not.
Correct.
Okay.
No, and on Naviance, it will tell you whether it's weighted. It will tell you weighted and then the ACT or the SAT.
Okay.
Yes.
So going back to demonstrated interest, are universities distinguishing between an in-person visit versus a virtual visit? So if you're not able to go in person, but you are attending some of these virtual information sessions, is there a difference?
No, I mean, I think a college person would tell you they'd love to have you on their property because seeing it in person is just, again, cute boys. You can see them. But no, I think virtual has gotten really pretty good. And I think, it's so funny that you asked that question. Santa Clara just visited, probably 17 kids around the table. Such a great school in California. And the year before, how many kids visited, and pretty much everyone had raised their hand. This year, 2 kids raised their hand. And then she asked, have you all? Oh, they all had done the virtual visit. They had all gone into what their major pages are. So no, they can keep track of that just as they can keep track of you signing in the admissions office. Yeah.
With regard to recommendation letters, do you recommend that they have to be a junior year teacher, or if they had a great relationship with someone sophomore year? Is it more?
I think as long as one of them is junior year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what colleges will tell you, that they colleges would be they would prefer a core teacher junior year. But you're gonna ask for 2, and some colleges will allow you to send more. So, but it depends. The Common App will actually filter through how many you send. Yeah.
I'm hearing less and less schools do traditional interviews.
Oh, you're like a plant in the audience. That we're doing a college interview workshop on April 11th for juniors. And yes, that's true. For example, Columbia University just did away with their alumni interviews. But all the other Ivies interview, and usually small liberal arts colleges. Larger state universities will offer you something called an information interview, meaning they're not going to take notes. They're not going to put anything in the file after the student leaves the admissions office. But you should still, if that's offered to your student, you should still take advantage because it's touching that college. So your kids are, you can tell the kids that eat dinner as a family at least once a week because they interview really, really well. But yeah, so we'll get the juniors set up so that right before spring break, if they're on college campuses, they'll feel a little more at ease in interviewing. And then I will happily do one-on-one mock interviews when September rolls around and you've applied to college and then you're offered the interview.
One other question. I understand early decision. I'm unfamiliar with early action, and I'm hearing more about it.
Early action is an early deadline and early notice of whether you're in or denied. So it's often the same deadline, which is November 1st. Sometimes November 15th, but you don't have to, it's not a binding decision. Early decision is binding. So you only apply to one, if you get in, you're in, you go. With early action, if you get in, great, you have many other schools to choose from.
Yeah, it's always nice to apply to at least one early action that you know you can get in.
Absolutely.
Because then you go, oh,
By Christmas.
somebody loves me.
Quick question, on the Navion search feature, you searched, you limited your search and you searched Massachusetts. Can you also search by region?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, West,
Iowa, Grinnell.
West. Yes.
How interactive are you with the students when it comes to completing the application? So I joined on Facebook, there are all these college admission groups you can join. And
God help you.
I know.
You are spiraling into hell quickly.
It's fascinating because you hear all these sad stories of my daughter had a typo in her application, my kid sent the wrong essay to.
The director of admission from one of the Claremont McKenna schools, Bruce Puck, a few years ago, wrote an essay about kids with typos in their essays. They go to college too. That colleges recognize that the person completing the application is human, just as the person reading the application is human. That is craziness. That's crazy. I would tell you, listen to the school counselors and don't go into these things. Do not let this be your cocktail party conversation or the sidelines of, because what you're hearing is one person who had this crazy thing happen.
And they're assuming that that's why their student didn't get it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, do you walk through the application process with them, or does that rely, do we walk through the application process and like kind of look through it when they're done and make
Well,
sure everything's...
students can come to us and show us their application. And of course, parents should look it over. We do encourage them to show us their supplemental questions and their essays. But most students are only sharing that with us.
And those are in our senior meetings, so we have senior play-dates as well, one-on-one with our seniors, and we go through and check things, make sure, we always tell them, make sure it's verbatim from your transcript, don't round up your grades, they will see your grades, so make sure you're honest. So there are things we will go through in the Common App with them. If I notice a student heads their Common App up, they tell me they're done with everything, but I notice there's not a check mark next to something, I'll say, okay, so this doesn't have a check mark, let's go over and see why it doesn't. And they might have missed a quick drop-down box to answer a question, maybe it's a demographical question or something like that. But we do look into that.
It's funny, yesterday, I can't remember what visit it was, but the rep brought up the supplemental essays and how important it was to the application. And so a boy said, well, what about AI in writing essays? And he's very bold, I thought. And she said, it's Miami of Ohio. It's the Miami of Ohio visit. And the rep said, well, we can spot that a mile away. And he said, you're the kid, you're thinking it won't be spotted, but trust me, we've been reading these things for a long time, and we can spot this a mile away. And then I reminded the student that everything, when you go to hit submit on that common application, when you click that box, it says everything that is on this application is honest and true and my own work. And so the student said, I understood. There was an Ivy League school this year who denied 6,000 applications because 6,000 kids had used a template where you only had to insert words. 6,000 right off the top denied them because each rep who was reading these apps were like, hey, I got 3 of these. Oh, I got 7 of these. And then they went through them all, denied. So again, be careful if you hire somebody to help out. Be careful with other things. Again, how you do this, it's like your taxes or buying getting a mortgage. How you do this is how you do other things.
The other thing about AI is for people under 18 and less, just to keep in mind, there's no privacy with AI. If your student uses AI, they're out there.
They're out there in the universe. There's no protection for them.
No protection whatsoever.
Crazy.
Whereas all our other applications have a lot of privacy.
Are there any other questions or anything else we can be helpful with? Yeah.
How do we request a copy of the transcript? I'm not sure we received that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
How do we request a copy of the transcript if we don't receive it?
Your student just needs to go in to see the registrar, Lisa
Okay.
Brandon, who you will meet next year. She's a goddess of technology. She's so good at her job, and we'll give her a transcript.
I've also had students reach out to me.
Oh, yeah, counselors can
Yeah,
do
so
that.
if they want to reach out, then we'll send them one.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we can be helpful with? Yeah.
So I was a little bit late, and I apologize about that, and so maybe you mentioned already at the beginning of the meeting, but do you recommend any particular shape or form of a college store? Because there are a lot of admission stores, general campus stores, and then specific school doors, like if there's School of Arts or Sciences.
Yeah, I think you're so early in the game right now that I would do just general tours.
Yeah.
But if you already know that your child is going to be an engineer, like if your child has been, the Legos are still in their bedroom and being used every day, then if you can tack that onto the tour, then great, do that. You're not going to make mistakes on this. Like, don't overthink this. Again, this is still early on. You don't really know much until you get the PSAT back. There's things that you don't really know. You wait till when grades start coming out, you'll have a better sense of, you're just sort of out there dating right at the moment. You're not gonna get engaged to anybody. But yes, if your child knows that they're interested in the fine arts or something along those lines, then yes, absolutely. And while you're on campus, pick a copy up of the campus newspaper. The tour guide who's walking backwards in flip-flops, which is amazing, is not gonna tell you, like, what's the crime like on campus? You know, where's the political unrest on campus? So pick up, and, you know, go into the lunch place or whatever, because they're talking about the great relationship between professors and students. Well, do you see professors lingering with kids? You know, so be a good consumer. But again, let your child sort of roam a little bit too, would be my best advice. You agree?
I do.
Anything else?
One last question, the PSAT scores, I know you said they're coming in November, how do the students receive those?
So what will happen is they'll receive an email to the email that they use to set up their College Board account that'll notify them that they can go and check. They can always log in if they want to, but I don't really recommend that they're constantly logging in and waiting until they for their account. They'll get a notification.
Yeah, it's very funny. We know exactly when they're getting it, not because College Board told us, but because all of a sudden there's a frantic bunch of phone calls. My child can't get into their account. You know, the numbers are going to be there tomorrow too. But yeah, they get an email from College Board. That's it.